I'm kind of glad I wasn't watching the news in the last 48 hours because that really angers me that people talk like that about other human beings. The ugliness, it just totally turns me off.
Our final pre-election focus groups found us circling back to 11 swing state voters we last spoke to in late July, all of whom voted for Nikki Haley during the GOP primaries earlier in the year. Just the day before our focus groups, a Trump rally at Madison Square Garden set off a firestorm within the Puerto Rican community. 7 of our 11 respondents had heard about the comments made by some of the rally speakers. After we played snippets of the most controversial remarks, these were respondents' reactions, continuing with Crystal.
That is so typical of what I hear from them all the time and why, as a Republican, I have become so upset because this is not the Republican Party that I know.
It just seems like it's Donald Trump and the Republican Party now is the party of grievances, and they demean the people that disagree with them.
I wouldn't want none of them people running nothing around me with that type of attitude.
It sucks.
Okay.
It's a terrible reflection on the party. I'm not going to vote for Harris because of it. It still makes me torn. Like if they had done a very professional event, maybe that would have moved the needle a little towards him or something like that. But it keeps me in a place where it makes it hard to fill in that oval.
I think it's disgusting. I can't say that it would change my vote. I don't think there's any place for that in a political rally. I don't think there's a place for that anywhere. Not just in a political rally.
I think it's just more of what I kind of expect from the campaign. Like, they like to rile up their base, and that's how they excite people to vote.
I'm just saying it's repulsive.
These 11 respondents were all over the place in terms of how they intend to vote. Some plan to vote for Harris, others for Trump, then some plan to vote for a third-party candidate, and a few are still torn over what they intend to do. Let me give you a taste of how each one thinks, starting with the 3 who support Harris.
She's a lot better candidate than the Republican one. I am a Republican, conservative Republican, but then again, look who we have to vote for a Republican. You can't go there. So I had to switch and vote for her.
And why
No
can't
questions asked.
and why can't you vote? Why can't you vote for him?
For Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. No, no. He should be in jail with all the other people that he, have been to jail.
If the day before you voted, Trump said, "What do I need to do to change your mind?" What would you have told him?
Nothing, because I don't like you.
When he came out during the debate and said, I have a concept of a plan, that spoke volumes to me. He does not have any idea about what exactly he wants to do unless it makes a good for him, not the country, but for him. And so that right there spoke volumes to me too, and kind of solidified my vote for the vice president.
Then there's Chris, who told me back in July that he intended to vote for Trump, but now sounds like he's likely to vote for Harris.
All the people that he's around kind of was around before that are kind of like now coming back and saying that making it like show that he wasn't, or he's gonna fly off the wall now. And I'm more afraid of what's gonna happen if he gets in power again. So now I don't want him in power.
So you tell me you're at 75% for Kamala Harris.
Yes.
She calls you up and she goes, "Chris, what do I need to do to get you to 100? What do you tell her?
I would say, like, put someone like Nikki Haley in your cabinet, or like put a couple prominent Republicans in your cabinet so that we actually know that you're gonna be a bipartisan person, and that way I know that like some of the stuff that we want to get done might get done because she's actually showing that she's going to be bipartisan because she's like actually putting those people in her cabinet.
Continuing on the spectrum from left to right, let's explore the two Haley voters who are supporting Chase Oliver, the Libertarian candidate for president. What changed since July?
I mean, I, I don't think that's like a non-change. It's just like not voting for one of the major parties. I don't think, Oliver's going to win. It's just kind of like a protest about saying, hey, please give me different options. So it's not really different. It's just like kind of, I didn't really like Jill Stein. I didn't like who else was on the ballot. I can't remember. I might have been one other person, but I've voted Libertarian before, and so I said that's just where I put my vote. I felt less confident about Kamala, and I was getting closer to voting for Trump. I think maybe it would have been a harder decision if I had been in because I feel pretty confident that Arizona is going to go for Trump. But maybe if I was in a more of a swing state, I'd have a harder time maybe not voting for one of the two major parties.
I will more than likely vote Libertarian Chase Oliver because Trump is a known quantity and Harris hasn't been able to explain how or why things would be different than they have been the past 4 years. I don't think she's been able to tell people how she would make things better, why things would be different. And in fact, I think recently she was on The View and was asked that question and came up with a non-answer, that things she couldn't think of anything that would necessarily be different.
Same question from the Trump side. If he said to you, what do I need to do to change your mind about voting for a third party? Why don't you just come out and vote for me? What would he need to do? What would you tell him?
I'd say I won't vote for you. You can't unring that bell. The things that have occurred. You can't go back and change history, and you're not going to change. I mean, that much is crystal clear. You are who you are.
Among the most interesting respondents are those who remain torn. Here's Jennifer from Pennsylvania.
I'm going to vote in the general election for sure. For president, I was either going to write in a name or vote for Trump, and I think. And those are still my choices.
Describe how you're torn.
I don't think he represents the presidency well. However, was the world a more stable place when he was in power versus Harris? And I think the answer is yes. Was my own family economically better off when he was in office versus now? Yes. I don't necessarily agree that, his policies are going to cause like $1 billion trillion of an additional debt, and Harris's won't cost anything. I don't know the talking points there. So that's why I might vote for him. Maybe it might be 50-50 at this point versus writing in a name for somebody who I think would do all of those things and morally, character-wise, internal stability wise, like not inciting riots or questioning elections or questioning due process or all of those things.
So help me understand this. Kamala Harris comes to you and says, hold on a second. You have all these qualms about Trump. Rather than voting for a third party, why don't you just come and vote for me? What would you tell her?
I would tell her that her policies don't align with my own, that I have grave concerns about her economic viewpoints, about the stability of the world under her and Biden's office tenure so far, about the state of the economy under those two so far. And, just say, oh, I'm going to control prices. I keep on hearing that. So does that mean you're going to, I heard she wants to punish retailers that charge too much for something, but in a free economy, another store would just open up and have lower prices if that's where you can't control prices. You should not. I don't think that's the economic society I would want to live in.
A gentleman named Zach from Wisconsin is less torn than Jennifer, but while he's leaning toward Trump, he still isn't sold on him yet. Has anything changed in your mind about him since late July?
No, I think right now I'm still leaning towards Trump. I don't think I'm hard locked for voting for him. Like I think that if I go in next Tuesday and go cast my ballot and something's just stopping me from voting for him, then maybe I'll vote for her. But right now I think I'm still leaning towards Trump.
So your reason for voting back in July for Trump that you told me was mostly related to the economy.
Yep.
That's still the case?
Yes.
What's the hesitation?
I mean, the morals. I mean, just voting for a guy that's done the things he's done and tried to do the things he's tried to do doesn't feel great by any means.
So explain to me why that concern doesn't supersede the things that you like about him.
At the end of the day, the president, despite him trying to want, and he says things that can't necessarily come true. The president's not an authoritarian. Obviously they're a political spearhead and they can, talk on behalf of the country, but at the end of the day, it's all the senators and the legislatures that are really putting into effect policies. He had, obviously, when he was in office the last time with the Supreme Court, he made an extreme difference there. But as terms of policy, the best he can do is, write a presidential order, and it's not necessarily into effect, and the funding is questionable at best. And without actual legislation, the president can't really do a whole lot.
It sounds as though you want Trump, but you want his hands tied.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the ideal. Yes.
So Kamala Harris hears our conversation. She's not going to, but let's assume she did. Okay, she heard you say what you just said. And she's saying to herself, this is a guy who clearly does not want to vote for Trump. And she comes to you and says, why don't you just vote for me? I'm not going to be a threat to the Constitution. I'm not going to start another insurrection. I'm going to be responsible. I'll be governing from left of center. I'm a Democrat, but I'm not going to do the things that you're worried Trump is going to do. Why is that not a compelling argument to you? Or is it a compelling argument?
I mean, if there's anything that's persuading me towards voting for her, it would be that. I typically, I call myself independent, but I definitely lean more right than other. So, I typically align with more right-leaning philosophies on things. And the policies that Kamala has put forth, I don't really agree with most of what she's doing policy-wise or would like to do policy-wise. With Trump's hands tied, I guess that would be more in line with what I would like to see.
Then there are those Haley voters who plan to vote for Trump, but do so with qualms. Now that we're in late October, did you decide to vote for Trump, Harris, or not vote, or some other choice, third party?
I'm going to vote for Vance.
Meaning what?
Meaning that it will be a Trump vote because I like the VP better.
Okay. So in your mind, So how do you get to voting for Vance? Explain to me that course that you're taking through your
Well,
mind.
because there's still a chance Trump's going to go to jail. I mean, that's not off the table with all the lawsuits and stuff against him. And so then we have to look at who's going to be the leader if that happens.
I would still say that I'm a true Republican and I'm going to vote Republican.
Okay, so this is completely about party being faithful to the party. Is that how you look at it, or is it give me a sense of how you think through the process? If you're not all that crazy about Trump, like why did you bother voting for him? I guess that's my question.
Okay. Well, I think that the moral, the views and morals of a Republican is closer to my beliefs. So whoever the Republican candidate is, that's how I'm voting.
So I guess what I'm wondering is there any way in your mind that you would have let go of Trump? Now, is there anything that he could have done that would have been so beyond the pale where you just could not have voted for him? Or is it just he's a Republican and just because he's a Republican, I'm going to vote for him?
Unfortunately, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
There's nothing, yeah. I would have preferred a different Republican candidate. That's
Okay.
clear.
Last time we spoke, you said you intended to vote for Trump. Has anything changed your mind about him since late July?
No, he's I mean, he's still kind of crazy, but maybe a good kind of crazy. And I think the Russians, they're afraid of him.
You think the Russians are afraid of him?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's pretty important to me, is that our enemies are afraid of us. He's clever like a fox, but he's also chaotic.
Thanks for joining us for our final pre-election focus groups. Please forward this link to a friend. Thank you.